Now, before we get a little bit more into the story, I want to talk about a little bit more of the habits and the behaviors that I started to obtain, just because I wanted to really throw myself into the relationship, not knowing that I am now entering into depression. So, even down to the finances in the house, that was really taking a toll on me because the agreement between me and Rasheed was for the first 2 months, I didn't ask him to pay anything because, again, my rent was already paid up for the entire lease. But now that he was going to be staying with me, I tried to, get him to pay half the rent, get him to pay some of the bills, and even down to that was a complete struggle. So a lot of all of that was falling on me, from the rent, from the electric bill, from food in the house, from cleaning supplies, from all of our subscriptions that we had, and just anything else. Now, what I will say, Rasheed pretty much paid for a lot of our dates. But now that I see how he moves, to be quite honest, I think he was using me along with the other women that he would go on dates with simply for pictures, to show people that, he lived a certain lifestyle, where it's like fine dining, I'm going places, I'm looking good, really trying to paint that image that he is this ideal person. But to be quite honest, again, he's insecure, and these were just a part of his insecurities. So a lot of those finances and just dealing with everything else in the house was really starting to take the physical and mental toll on me as well. And I want to talk about a particular night, right? We had planned a date night out to Tao. If anybody has ever been to Tao, you know what it gives, right? So we went to the Tao in Midtown and we had a really good date. The date was really good. And at the end of it, we were about to leave. And normally, like I said before, we would do it to where either I would pay for the date, he would pay for the transportation, or vice versa. So this particular night, I ended up paying for the date and he paid for transportation. But while we're like sitting outside, he was opening up his banking app, and I was just playing with him. I said, let me see what you got in your account, just being funny. And he actually let me look into his account. And he had over maybe 6,000 something dollars in his account. Now, I am not the one to talk about anybody's finances or, really be in somebody else's pockets. But when I seen that amount of money and you see me doing all of these things for you, and not only just for you, but to maintain myself, my hygiene, my well being, and the only thing that you're really simply offering me at this point is an expensive date out to an expensive restaurant when we have all these bills in the house, that also made me look at him a little different, because I was going to like Target. And again, I don't do things because I expect them to be done in return for me. But if we're in a relationship, I expect you to at least ask me certain things, like just basic stuff. Like, do you need tampons? Do you need panties? Like, do you need any of these things, right? I would go to Target. I would buy him socks. I would buy him t-shirt. I would buy him boxers. I was starting to buy him all of his hygiene stuff. And just to see that portion of it too, that was also another red flag that I ignored. And later on down the line, he eventually started to pay like little things, but it was never consistent. Like, I really had to stay on top of him just to pay certain stuff. And I think, he was all for himself at that point, because to me, I just truly believe that he was very cheap in that sense. And he knew that I was very independent and somewhat strong minded to take care of everything, even if he did not offer it. So accountability comes into play again, because I allowed him to do that part too, and just pretty much live here rent free while he's getting himself together. And like I said, I have money, and it wasn't about that. But at the end of the day, it's about the principle and it's about your character. So going into the week before, I, found out that he was going to be meeting up with Sasha. It started to get very dark for me. Like, I started to just feel very empty and just very numb. I would be at work, I would be talking to my friends, I would be talking to my mom, my brother, like whoever. And I could comprehend what you're telling me and I could fully engage with the conversation that you're, offering me. But I just felt empty and I felt like everything was going in one ear, not the other. Because I really started to feel bad for myself for being put in the situation that I was in and not being able to get out or not even know the next steps of how to get out. And I will be honest, there were a few times in the relationship where I did try to leave Rasheed, and he would always tell me, just please don't give up on me. I've never dated somebody like you. I'm really trying to understand how this all works, etc., etc. But again, I had already found him talking to trans women before and multiple at that. So in my mind, I felt like you already knew what you liked and you were just playing this game with me. And the only reason why I did not leave him is because I just thought about everybody that left me and abandoned me and how I felt. And I didn't want to be the person that allowed him to feel that same way. Always putting my emotions into it, always putting just who I was as a person into the relationship. So every time when I tried to leave him and he would say certain things or do certain things, it just made me think like, don't abandon him because that is a sense of trauma. And, you're really here because he's trying to work on himself. He will change. He loves you. All bullshit. Complete bullshit. So the week that I found out he was about to go see Sasha, it maybe an exact week that I can think about, or maybe just a couple days before that Tuesday was gonna come. I just started having a rush of all these emotions and I'm already going crazy in my mind. And I'm like, what is another way that I can escape? Right? We had already talked about him, fully living here and all these other kind of things. But I was just so willing to try to break free that I was willing to give him this apartment. I was really willing to give him this apartment because I just needed an outlet and I needed a space to just get away from it because everything was just hitting me like a ton of bricks. And I really did not know how to handle it or how to move. So I was almost to the point where I'm like, you know what? I got money. I will go rent a room. I will go to an Airbnb. I will get a studio apartment, just something. I have to leave this house because being stuck in these four walls and just continuing to see all of this stuff and just how it was messing with me mentally was driving me so crazy. It was driving me so crazy. And so I remember just one night, this maybe had to been like that Friday or that weekend. He did have like some type of work event to go to. And I just started grabbing some of the bands that I had in the house and just started folding up clothes. And I'm like, listen, I have to go. I have to go. You can have the apartment. I will call the leasing office. Just doing the most and just, again, going crazy out of my mind and just letting him see me like that. And I'm emotional while I'm doing it. I'm crying in front of him because I'm just like, you know what? You're not getting the big picture. You're not getting the big picture. And again, this is just what narcissists will do. They will literally manipulate you to think that things are going to change or even that you're the cause for all of this going on. So while I'm in the living room pulling out all these clothes, taking them out the room, just really putting on an act that I'm about to leave, because in my mind, I really did want to leave, but I just wanted to see if he would change something about him or even try to stop me. And this was a behavior that I continued later on down the line that I'll talk about some more when it comes to me trying to leave and to see if he would chase me or to see if he would even change if I, ultimately did leave him. So I'm grabbing all the clothes. I'm having a conversation with him. We're talking about it. And I just let him know, I'll call the leasing office on Monday. You're more than welcome to have the apartment, so on and so forth. So he was totally fine with it. We were talking about stuff. And in my mind, I'm like, girl, you worked so hard to get this apartment. And this was my first apartment on my own. like my first one bedroom apartment on my own in New York City. And in all of the 9 years that I have lived here, maybe my first couple of years, I always had roommates. Maybe the last year or two before I had actually moved into this apartment, I had a studio apartment. So to me, that was just very small, but it was a step up. And then now for me to have my own one bedroom apartment, I was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? I was so excited to finally be in this place in my life and to finally feel like I was comfortable and stable in a city that I had moved to that was so hard for me in the beginning. And now I'm just gonna let it go to waste because somebody is in here disrupting my peace and disrupting me as a person. So I stopped, in the middle of me, doing all of this, and I just called my mom. I went to the room and I called my mom, and I just started crying to her and just started to vent to her because I really didn't have another outlet or anybody else I could turn to. And the one thing my mom always told me is, and my mom is one of these people that she's had her own failed relationships, and she really is comfortable in her own skin, and she is really just okay with being alone and just being such a powerful woman that she is. Everything that she wants to conquer now, she's doing it, even down to her being in nursing school. So it's just so inspirational to see her go through all those struggles with men, with raising two kids as a single parent, and just be in the space that she's in now. I had no other choice but to vent to her. And the one thing that she told me was, you will know when you're tired. You will know when you're tired. And you're not tired yet because you keep allowing him to do certain things. You keep being in the situation. So she was right. I would know when I'm tired. And after I had that conversation with her, I just went to the room. He went to his work event. I had one of my friends come over and, we're drinking, and I'm just telling her, girl, like, I'm starting not to realize who I am anymore. I feel very embarrassed. I feel ashamed. I feel very low. And I was starting to float in life. Just waking up, continuing to do that routine of taking care of him, taking care of me, taking care of my household, just everything. I was starting to feel like a robot and definitely a prisoner in my own home. I started to walk on eggshells because I didn't want to start an argument. I started to walk on eggshells because I didn't want him to leave me, or I didn't want to keep bringing up old stuff. But when you have a mind or even a brain, as we do as humans, all of that trauma is stored in your brain. So to see everything as quickly as I was seeing it, I just couldn't help but to think about it. That was literally all I was thinking about for weeks, for months. Just everything he was doing to me, and I just couldn't process it. I just could not process it, and I'm beating myself up day in and day out because I felt like a prisoner, not even in my own home, but in my own body and in my own mind. And like I said, every time we would have sex, Rasheed would always mention to me that he was depressed about stuff. He would always mention to me how, he had anxiety and things like that. And even when down to like him getting like a haircut, for example, very fine, very handsome. And I would always comment on it and I'll say, oh, you look good. Like, love the new haircut. And he was like, really? You think I look good? And I'm like, yeah, like, obviously I wouldn't be talking to you because I think, as humans, we have to have some type of physical attraction to the person that we're with. And now looking back on it, that is what let me know that you were insecure and you're looking for validation in all of these situations and all of these women to validate who you are as a person. And so every time we would have sex, I'm telling you, that soul tie and just that sex demon, he was literally transporting and transferring all of those insecurities, all of that depression and everything else into me. And now I'm the one dealing with the outcome because now I'm experiencing everything that you had that you have now given to me. So after that was all said and done, he went to his party. I hung out with my friend and I'm just explaining to her everything that was going on. And once she left, I just sat in the room and just started to think about everything that was happening and just how I would move. But instead of just actually trying to leave, here I am again trying to think of other ways to love him better and to again make him see my value. So he moves a lot of boxes and stuff at work, and he does work really late hours. And at this point, I started to integrate some new techniques in the relationship, right? He would come home, I would massage him, massage his shoulders, his back, really try to pour into him and let him know, like, okay, I'm not only here for you mentally, physically, but now I really want to show you I really do care about you. So massaging his feet because he had been on his feet all day, just really doing a number on top of everything else. And it's like, why would you leave somebody like me? Why would you leave somebody like me if you're able to continue to play in my face and continue to do all of these things, and you know you have somebody that's here that's gonna ride or die for you? Why would you leave? Like, I'm really the main source that is pouring all of this energy into you, and everybody else is like micro bits of energy. And like I said, all of this stuff I didn't realize until now. Me being in the space that I'm in now, it's easier for me to see more clearly everything bit by bit and piece by piece. So that weekend had came, that Monday had came. I still didn't tell him that I knew he was going to go see Sasha. I was playing it off as if, I was just still playing along with him supposed to be going to go see his dad. And when that Tuesday came that morning, we had just finally got a little bit of snow. And honestly, the New York winters for the past couple of years have not even been that severe, but on this particular day, it was snowing like crazy. And so I'm like, okay. I'm like, he's not going to go see her because it's just snowing. You're not going to, travel in the snow, because I knew him. He's pretty bougie. And I just was like, okay, well, I won. And that's how I thought, and I think that's just so crazy to have that mindset and crazy to think that way. But again, that's just the space that I was in. And so that morning, we got up, we were watching some type of movie or TV show in the bedroom. And again, I'm in my normal routine. I'm like, well, let me go make you some breakfast. And at this point, everything started to change. My algorithms on my social media started to change. I started to listen to motivational speeches on how to leave people or to just be a better, stronger woman. I started to listen to more podcasts on how to, identify people in relationships, how to leave relationships, or even how to work on relationships. So all of my algorithm on everything started to change. So I got up and I started to make us breakfast, but I'm listening to a podcast, and this particular podcast is called Date Yourself. And I will put in the link right here. And if you are somebody that is also experiencing a narcissistic relationship or just wanting to get out and be free and be yourself, please listen to this girl and her podcast. She is amazing on her storytelling and how she has empowered so many women, including myself. But I digress. So I'm in the kitchen and I'm making breakfast, and I just really felt good about listening to the podcast. And that energy was starting to come out of me, right? My spirit was nice. I felt good, even with everything going on. So as I'm bringing him the breakfast in the room, he sees how happy I am. And I'm smiling, and for whatever reason, that made him so upset. And he came out and he's like, I really don't like when you are laughing and smiling in my face. And I was so confused. I'm like, huh? Like, what are you even talking about? He's like, yeah, you came in the room and I don't like when you're laughing and you're smiling because I'm trying to figure out what's funny. And I'm just like, Rasheed, what are you talking about? Like, I literally woke up in a good mood. I'm obviously here making you breakfast, and I'm just in a good mood. Like, what is your problem? But now I realized why he did it. He was trying to start an argument with me or trying to get into something with me, because at that point, it would justify you to do what you did later on in that day, because he eventually went to go see Sasha. And that really just turned my energy down. And I just started to get very upset and I started to get very mad because now that I'm in a good mood, you're acting like this. And it was really just to start this argument so you could feel good about yourself for what you're about to do to me. And to pause from that, I was recently talking to one of my friends, and we were just talking about everything in my relationship between me and Rasheed, and she brought up a very good point to me. And you know what? Shout out to Coco. Because Coco is one of my good girlfriends, and she is the one who has really been holding me down, along with Ashley and Deasia and everybody else who was involved while I was dealing with Rasheed. And she said, you know what, girl? I really think that the energies in the house were battling each other. And I didn't really think about it until she mentioned that, because I am really a rare person. I have a pure heart. I try to lead with love. I try to have good intentions with people and really just be a decent, good human being. Yes, I have my own flaws, and yes, I do my little ones and twos, but as far as my character is concerned, I really do try to be a good person to people that I come across. And I think that is a part of my childhood that I'm trying to heal, that people weren't good to me. I was always bullied at some point. I always was dealing with stuff on my own or internally. So I think that is a part of me now as an adult that is trying to heal that part of my childhood. And she continued to say, yeah, girl, like you have such a good heart and such a good energy. Dealing with somebody that was like Rasheed, that was very demonic and had all these things going on with him, and especially bad energy, our energies were doing this. They were doing this. And, you know, at first, I think my energy was keeping up, but little instances and little situations like that, it was starting to get to me. So he went into the room, he closed the door. I sat in the kitchen and I was just starting to talk to my friends because, again, I'm just looking for somebody to hear me out. I'm just looking for somebody to hear me out, and I'm telling them what's going on. And I ended up leaving. I went to Home Depot to get some stuff. And by the time I was coming back, I didn't know at that point that he was gonna go see Sasha. But when I got back, he was getting dressed. He was doing his shower, his skincare routine, all that good stuff, and putting on his boots. And before he left, he was trying to explain to me, like, Nolani, I wasn't mad at you. I just, I'm going through something, and I just didn't like that, you were laughing. And, I just looked at him because I'm like, whatever, Rasheed, because at this point, I've heard it all before. And before he left, I told him, I hope you have a good time going to go see your dad. And I will never forget the facial expression and the smirk that he had on his face. And the smirk he had on his face was so conniving and honestly so evil looking. And I'm just really like, you literally sat here and lied in my face. You lied on your dad. And now you're really about to go chill with this woman. So he leaves. And when he leaves, maybe like 30 minutes later, he texts me and he says, if you're going to have anybody in the house, please make sure everything is locked up, etc., etc. But I'm like, why would I have anybody in our home while you're not here? Like, what sense are you making right now? And I think he feels like I was doing whatever he was doing. But again, that it was just not me. I didn't feel good doing that type of stuff. So I asked him, like, are you not coming back home? And he was like, no. And just to think about that, I literally just sat in the house and in silence. I sat in the house in silence, no TV, no lights, and I just started crying. I just started crying because what started out as you being bored or you not having anything to do, you're now putting action to what was so called you being bored. And you're really about to go and hang out with this woman. And I seen everything that you text this woman. So I knew sex was going to be involved. And at that point, I didn't want him to give anyone else anything that he had been giving to me. And so I just sat in the living room and just drowned. just drowned in my sorrows and just trying to figure out, girl, what are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do? Because at this point, he already had a very tight grip on me, and I think he knew that he had that on me because you had already done all these things. And I was still by your side. I was still loving you the same way. I didn't switch up on you. So again, it's like, why would you leave me? And so I think he really knew that no matter what he was starting to do, that I was going to be okay with it and he was going to be okay to still stay in this house. But I had another thing coming for that ass because now I'm starting to get to a breaking point. Well, really, not even a breaking point because the breaking point was nothing compared to this. So I was just starting to get to a point where I'm like, I got to do something. I have to do something because I'm literally going crazy. I'm losing my mind and I'm losing myself as a person. So what am I going to do? So the night went on. He didn't come back home. And the next morning came. He had to be to work that next morning. So it was still snowing. And I started to look through the house, right? Because I'm really starting to figure out, like, what kind of person, again, am I living with? So I wanted to see what did he have in this house that we shared together. So I'm cleaning up the house and I'm starting to look around and, he had this like Supreme duffel bag. And so I never looked through any of his stuff, but I'm like, with all this shit going on, like, I just want to make sure that I'm safe. I just want to make sure that you have nothing in here that I need to find out about. So as I'm going through the house and through his stuff, I'm in the bag and I find a huge box of Trojan Magnum condoms. And this is again the part that I started to get really crazy in my mind dealing with him. Because from that point on, that box of condoms, they were fully, like nothing had been used, but they were open, but nothing had been used. I started to count these condoms. And when I say I started to count these condoms, it could have been something random and I would think about it. And I would go to the room and count the condoms. Or it could be days in a row where I'm counting the condoms. Or if he was late coming from work or just anything that I would think that he was out doing something, I would go straight to the room and count the condoms. They were always fully there because me and him didn't use condoms. We were having unprotected sex. So that was something I had found, and that was starting to be like a little piece of the routine where I'm like, okay, let me check the box of condoms today. Just doing crazy, stupid stuff. Doing crazy, stupid stuff, and then beating myself up about it, right? And then I found Polaroids. The night that him and the girl Maya went on a date, I guess she had a Polaroid camera. They had took Polaroid pictures, and just to continue to find out more stuff about him, I sound very crazy talking about it now, but I don't know, like, love is it's just a funny thing. And like I said, I really loved Rasheed and I still do. But in that moment, I just really thought I could change him. I really thought I could be a savior because, again, I didn't have anybody to save me when I was fighting all of my battles and all of my demons. So I thought maybe that was my opportunity to, I don't know, maybe heal that part of myself as well, right? But it was just damaging to me, very damaging to me. Now, when I knew Rasheed had spent the night with this girl, what he did not know was I had already screen recorded, I had took screenshots of their messages, and I had her number. I had her number, I had Rachel's number, and I had a few other people's numbers that he had been in contact with. So the only other person that I knew for sure would amp me up to call this girl was my best friend Ashley. Ashley is like a firecracker. She has literally been through some similar situations, if not on the same level, in her past relationships as well. So I ended up calling her that day, that morning, I should say, and I'm just telling her everything. I told her, how Rasheed lied about going to go see his dad and went to go see this girl, Sasha. And, I needed a little bit of not necessarily liquid courage, but I needed more of a friendship courage to really call this girl, because at this point I was just like, you know what, I have to do something. And it almost made me feel like I had a voice in the relationship, or I could move a certain way, because like I said before, I was very stuck in that grip that he had me in, and I needed an outlet to just move and to just feel like I was freeing myself from something, right? So ended up talking to her, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna call this girl and I'm gonna let her know that Rasheed not only lives with me, but we're in a full-blown relationship. And I don't know what kind of relationship y'all have, or what extent of everything he's telling you beyond what I'm seeing, because they definitely talked on the phone, because I would see messages from him saying, thank you for keeping me up until I fell asleep. Or, I'm pretty sure he was talking to her or FaceTiming her on his breaks at work. So Ashley was like, yeah, girl, do it. I'll be on three-way. Just call her. So I really felt scared, because I have never been that kind of girl that's like, let me come to you as a woman. That's just not been my style. And again, I've never been able to be present with so many things that was happening to where I felt like I needed to call the person that I found out about, because again, Rasheed was the first person who was really taking me through the loops and the hoops of all this shit in the relationship. So I like literally waited hours before I did it. My palms were sweaty. I was just very nervous, very anxious to call this woman. And then Ashley's like, girl, what are you waiting on? Just call her. So I ended up calling Sasha, and before that, I was texting her. Because, for me, I feel like I got a little bit more courage when I'm texting somebody, and I'm like, hey, is this Sasha? And she's like, who is this? I'm like, just let me know when you have some free time, and I'll give you a call because we need to talk about something. She just kept saying, like, who is this? Like, what do you want? Like, really trying to not necessarily be on the phone with me. But then she finally agreed, and she said, okay, you can call me. So I called her and I said, hey, I'm pretty sure you're the girl that Rasheed was with last night, but I'm just going to let you know that he lives with me and we're in a full-blown relationship. So I'm not really sure what y'all got going on or what happened, but you might want to come help him, because I'm kicking him out today and he can come stay with you at this point. And, I ended up asking her, and I never told him this, but I ended up asking her, did they have sex? And she told me yes. And then I went a little bit further and asked her, did they have unprotected sex? And she told me yes. So in my mind, I already had all of this adrenaline rushing, because I felt very powerful for taking that step and really just calling this girl and feeling like I had some type of power in the relationship, to let her know who I was. So once we ended the conversation, and before I ended the conversation with her, I said, please do not let Rasheed know, because I am scared for my life. Just so that she would not go and tell him, and that way I could try to figure out what my next steps were going to be to getting him out that night, or whatever my plans were for the situation. But Ashley was like, girl, I'm telling you, she's going to go and tell him. I'm like, no, because I played it off and I told her not to say anything. So I don't think she'll do it. I kid you not. Maybe an hour or two later, I hear the keys opening to the door of the house. And I'm just like, what the fuck? It was Rasheed, full work clothes on, all the things that he had brought to spend the night at her house, they weren't with him. So in my mind, I'm like, well, did you leave all your stuff at her house? But then I realized he had left it at work, and he was actually on his lunch break, and she actually told him everything that I had said. So when I opened up the deadbolt, he comes rushing in with his phone out. And I'm just looking at him. He goes straight to the room. He's like with his camera on his stuff and just looking around the room. And I'm like, hey, I don't know what you're doing or what you're looking for, but you can get all of your stuff and you can leave. And he was like, why would you call her? Why would you tell her that we live together? And just really walking around the house trying to make sure that I didn't touch any of his stuff. Because again, this girl had went and told him that I said I was going to kick him out and she can come and pick him up and take him right on along with her. So I'm telling him, I'm like, listen, I'm not doing this anymore. You sat up here, you lied to me, talking about you were gonna go see your dad. You actually went and met this girl. So at this point, Rasheed, you can get out of my house and you can leave. And he did not want to go. He's like, I'm not leaving. You're not kicking me out. And I said, I'm not gonna touch your stuff. I'm just pre-warning you that by today I need you out of here. I'm not touching any of your stuff. So I don't know what you need to do. Call your job, let them know you can't come back or whatever you need to do, but you have to leave today. And so this turned into a big argument, a huge argument. And you could just tell he was looking flustered and nervous because at this point, he really realized, or at least from what I was presenting to him, that I was finally trying to stand on business and end things with him. So we're going back and forth. And at this point, I'm on the phone with Ashley talking to her and just letting him know, I'm like, yeah, girl, he's in the house right now and he's going to get his stuff and he's going to leave. But I start to hear him on the phone with somebody. And I'm like, girl, hold up, hush. He is on the phone with the police. This man sat up here and called 911 because I am trying to kick him out of the house. And so he's letting them know, like, hey, my girlfriend, she's trying to kick me out. I have all my stuff here. And, you know, there's been times before when we were in really good spaces where I've kind of played with Rasheed, like I may have something in the house in case somebody was to break in, not necessarily saying it was a gun, a knife, a taser, pepper spray, whatever, just playing around with him. And so I hung up with Ashley because I'm like, you know what, let me call my brother just in case it gets a little bit more crazy because me and him were really getting into it and it was getting very heated. So while the police is asking him certain questions, there's one particular question that they asked him that I just could not believe his response to. They said, well, is there any weapons in the house? This man said, I don't know. I don't know. And the police are like, do you feel safe? And, you know, I really didn't hear everything else because he went into the room and I'm just now super upset and mad that you would call the police, one, because we're a black couple at that. And two, to sit there and tell them you don't know if I have weapons in the house when you damn for sure know I don't have no gun. That's for one. I'm scared of guns. Wouldn't even want to touch one. But for you to present that picture to the police to make it seem like I'm this person that is doing all this stuff and you don't feel safe in the house. And again, we are a black couple. So why would you even call the police to begin with, instead of just getting your stuff and getting out? And like I said, at this point, I felt powerful in a sense, but in the back of my mind, I was also very sad because I'm like, I really have to sit up here and do this to somebody that I love. I'm literally kicking somebody out because of the decisions that you continue to keep doing to me. And I'm just sitting here taking it, and taking it. So at this point, I hung up with my brother and I'm just calling all my friends at this point because I'm like, girl, I need somebody to be on the phone just for when the police come because I need y'all to also be a witness because this man has sat up here and literally called the police on me. So I'm calling Ashley, I'm calling Coco, I'm calling everybody I can call and including my brother, again, just so everybody can be on the phone and they can speak on my behalf when the police get here. So the police take forever. The police take forever to get here. And again, I didn't know at the time until later that night that he actually took his lunch break and came here after the girl Sasha had called him and let him know everything that I had told her. So he eventually had to go back to work. And mind you, the police had still not shown up. But maybe 30 or 45 minutes after he left and went back to work, and mind you, this whole time he's texting me. Like, if you touch my stuff, I'm gonna, let the police know you can't do this to me. I live there too. And at the time, I didn't know anything about squatters' rights in New York City. So even in the event that I'm asking him to leave and get out, by this point, Rasheed had already stayed in the house and was getting mail delivered here and everything to where I could not even kick him out of the house. And I did not know that. So when the police finally arrived, they're asking me certain questions. They're like, how long have y'all been together? What's going on? I'm just telling them, like, it's infidelity. He's cheating. I'm just tired of being with him and I need him to leave. So they're explaining to me about squatters' rights and things like that. And listen, the one little thing that I did, like, the man was looking at me. He was like, do y'all have any kids together? Are you pregnant? Things like that. And I was just like, mm-hmm. That kind of let me know that, she was given fish, she was given woman. And, I like I always say, I feel like I'm very female presenting, but little things like that really do make me feel better inside and make me realize that I am doing my part to continue to transition into the woman that I want to be. But besides the point, so they ended up filing a piece of paperwork. I forgot what the name of the exact paperwork was. It's pretty much when somebody calls about like domestic abuse and anything dealing with a relationship, they keep it on file, and there's but so many of them that you can get before they start really stepping in and handling it another way. So I just really felt embarrassed. I felt low. And I just couldn't believe that this man would call the police on me and him, in a sense, and that I now had to have something filed on me with my name that would be held at the precinct. So, as all of this is going on, he is continuing to text me and he's just like, I had to leave my job because of this. And really doing that manipulation thing to where I started to feel bad because I'm like, you had to do all of this just to come home because I spoke my truth to this girl. And I started texting her too. I said, well, girl, are you going to come help him? Because he has to leave tonight. And she was like, oh no, I don't want no parts of it. I didn't know anything about that. I'm done with him. I'm not talking to him no more, etc. So as the night went on, Rasheed eventually stopped texting me, and I knew at some point he was gonna have to come home, and he normally got home around maybe 10 or 11. So I'm just nervous because I'm anticipating this huge fight we just had, and I really didn't know what I was gonna do next. But I want to go ahead and insert a little clip right here to let y'all see how a normal argument between us would go and how he would try to flip things on me. Because at this point, I was like, you know what? I had done everything. I had moved all of my stuff out of the one big closet we had in our house. I let him take the whole big closet. I ended up getting me a rolling rack. I put my stuff in our small mini closet just because I was literally treating this man like a king while he was treating me like a servant and a fucking peasant. So I want y'all to watch this clip. But in this clip, it started this behavior with him. He, or I guess when we would get into these arguments, he would stay a little bit later at work. He would get super drunk and then he would come home, because this would not be the first instance of this happening. But I want y'all to just watch this clip and, like I said, see how these arguments would turn out and how he would always draw me back in. Whether the argument was small, whether it was big. And like I said, I've tried to leave Rasheed multiple times, but it was something deep down inside me that just could not let him go. And again, it was like a drug. It's hard for people to get off drugs once they're addicted. You keep saying you don't know what's wrong with you, but you're fighting yourself. You're fighting who you are as a person, and I keep telling you, I don't think that I'm what you want, but you keep saying you want me. But why would I stick around with somebody that says that, and then they're just gonna ultimately do the same thing they did to me again? You have to be willing to want to make that change, because I made that change. When I told you I wanted to be with you, every single person that I had in my phone, I got rid of. I got off of all the dating apps that I was on. I made that commitment to you, because one thing that I pride myself on is if I say something, I want to stand by it. My bond is my word. And I wanted to make sure that I gave you all of my focus and my attention. Because again, I am a lover girl. I can't get out of that. I love hard. And I wanted to show you what love looked like. And I wanted to show you that I loved and I cared about you. But I need you to get it together because you're intoxicated right now. You are intoxicated, Rasheed. And you talking about you love me and that you want me and all this other kind of stuff. Tomorrow you're not gonna remember anything.
No, I'm not drunk. I'm good.
Rasheed, you're literally stumbling.
I'm not. I promise you, I'm good. I'm
Okay.
not.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna go. So.
Where are you going?
In the room.
Why?
What do you mean, why, Rasheed? What do you want?
It's okay, no problem.
What do you want from me?
You're gonna bring out the rack?
Yes.
Right. It's okay. Oh.
But you just make my life so confusing.
Okay. Okay. All right. Right. I don't want to confuse you anymore. That's it.
Yeah, because you don't want me, right?
I just told you how I feel.
So what are you saying? You not gonna keep making me confused?
Because Melanie, it seems like that's what you want me to say, right? Because
clearly, no, I want you to tell the truth and express yourself.
I'm telling the truth. I want you, Melanie. I love you. That's the truth. But you're saying that I don't want you. So what else can I say? Because that is the truth, Melanie. I love you. I always loved you.
So, after all of that happened, it really started our demise of our relationship because everything had already been happening, right? But at that point, I no longer wanted to like sleep in the same bedroom with him because he couldn't move out, right? And I just made him, take the air mattress and sleep in the living room. But even with all that, I started to just feel bad. I started to feel bad, and it was not only bad for myself, but just bad for the situation, and that it had to get that far that the police were called, right? I've never been in a relationship where the police were called on me or anything like that. And, I just, still to this day, I don't know how you could watch somebody, right, love you so much, and you continuously do that stuff to people. And for me, I was just at a place where, like I said, I felt like I was in a competition with these women, and I was willing to do anything to, solidify my spot, right? But every day was just getting worse. And, every day I walked outside the house, I was coming back in a different person. And I don't think that was something that he cared about. Because every day, as long as I was doing stuff for you and as long as I was taking care of you and showing you the same treatment, that's all that mattered. Right. So with Christmas and New Year slowly approaching around the corner, I just knew at some point, even with us being separated in the house, he was just gonna find himself a way to just draw me back into his arms and just continue the same bullshit. And I tried so hard to just really stand my ground and to stand on business, but just like I said, he found a way to lower me right back into it. And, I just knew it wasn't good. Like this is very toxic. It's becoming very apparent to me that I am depressed at this point and I'm experiencing all these things. But again, it's like how could I treat somebody that I love or to try to kick them out or to see them with no place to go? Especially in a time like fall and winter when it's super cold and things like that. Again, that's just the kind of heart that I had. And I know now that I need to choose myself first. But like I said, I knew it was going to happen. And I just knew things were not going to change. I knew they were going to get worse. But at this point, I can't kick him out because he's been here for so long. And with my lease renewal coming up, I really wanted to get a serious and clear understanding of what was going on before we went into the new year. But what I notice now is you just can't teach an old dog new tricks. So stay tuned for part 6.